They laughed when he walked in, but by the end he had destroyed everything they believed. Have you ever seen a man judged so quickly, so completely, that no one bothered to ask who he really was? Have you ever watched arrogance build a throne for itself, only to see it collapse in one moment of truth? This is not a story about fists. This is a story about power, and how one black man defeated a white man, without raising his voice, without throwing a punch, but by letting the truth speak louder than hatred ever could. The morning Daniel Cole walked into Huxley and Crown Industries, the sky was gray. Not stormy, just heavy, the kind of sky that presses down on your shoulders without warning. Daniel adjusted his coat as he stepped through the glass doors. It wasn't new. It wasn't flashy, but it was clean, intentional, purposeful. He had learned long ago that appearances mattered, especially when people were already looking for reasons to dismiss you. Inside the lobby, marble floors reflected the lights above. People moved quickly, confidently. Laptops, suits, expensive watches. Daniel moved calmly. Not rushed, not nervous. He checked his watch. 8:17 a.m. early. As always, the boardroom sat on the 23rd floor. Large, cold, designed to intimidate. Daniel entered quietly and took a seat near the far end of the table. No one spoke to him. A few glanced his way, then away. Some eyes held curiosity, others held assumptions. One man, however, stared openly. That man was Richard Huxley, vice president, legacy hire, the founder's grandson. Richard leaned back in his chair, scanning Daniel like an object left in the wrong place, and then he laughed, not loudly, but loud enough. "Excuse me," Richard said, standing. "Can someone tell security that maintenance wandered into the wrong room?" The room froze. A few people smiled nervously. Others pretended to check their phones. Daniel looked up. Their eyes met. Daniel said nothing. That silence felt like defiance to Richard. He stepped closer. "You don't speak much, do you?" Richard smirked. "Or is English not your first language?" A couple of chuckles followed. Daniel inhaled slowly. "English is fine," he said calmly. Richard raised an eyebrow. "Well then, help me understand why you're here." Daniel smiled faintly. "I'm here because I was invited." Richard laughed harder this time. As executives trickled in, Richard made sure Daniel never forgot his place, or the place Richard thought he belonged. He asked him to fetch water. He questioned whether he knew how meetings worked. He joked about diversity quotas. Each comment landed like a slap. Daniel absorbed them all, silently. What Richard didn't know was where Daniel came from. Daniel grew up in a neighborhood where opportunity didn't knock. You had to break the door down yourself. He had been underestimated his entire life. Teachers doubted him. Employers questioned him. Investors dismissed him. And every time, he prepared. While others slept, Daniel studied. While others talked, Daniel built. While others mocked, Daniel planned. Silence had become his weapon. The CEO finally entered. The room stood. The CEO didn't look at Richard first. He looked at Daniel and smiled. "Thank you for coming early," the CEO said. Richard's stomach tightened. "Ladies and gentlemen," the CEO announced. "Before we begin, I want to introduce someone important." He gestured toward Daniel. "This is Mr. Daniel Cole." The room stirred. He is the primary investor behind our recent acquisition, the architect of our restructuring plan. And as of today, our new chairman. Silence, heavy, crushing. Richard's face drained of color. Daniel stood, not rushed, not triumphant, just steady. He turned toward Richard. "You asked why I was here," Daniel said. "I'm here to observe." Richard tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. Daniel pressed a button. A screen lit up. Charts. Emails. Financial trails. "Richard Huxley," Daniel continued calmly, "has cost this company millions through arrogance, discrimination, and poor leadership. The board leaned forward. Email after email appeared. Jokes, slurs, abuses of power. Richard's world collapsed line by line. Effective immediately, Daniel said. Richard Huxley is removed from all positions? Richard stood abruptly. You can't do this, he shouted. Daniel looked at him. I already have. Security entered. The same security Richard had once threatened Daniel with. As Richard was escorted out, no one laughed. No one spoke. Daniel turned back to the board. Let this be clear, he said. This company will no longer mistake confidence for competence, or skin color for intelligence. Daniel gathered his things. As he walked out, the same lobby felt different. People watched him now. But Daniel didn't look back, because the victory wasn't about them. It was about dignity reclaimed. After Richard Huxley was escorted out, something strange happened. The boardroom didn't explode with chatter. It didn't fill with applause. Instead, it sat in silence. The kind of silence that comes when people realize the world they understood 5 minutes ago no longer exists. Daniel remained standing, not because he wanted attention, but because he understood something most people didn't. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits to be recognized. He looked around the table. Men and women who had laughed earlier. People who had looked away. People who had stayed silent to protect themselves. Their eyes were different now. Respect? Fear? Curiosity? All of it. Daniel finally spoke again. This meeting isn't about revenge, he said evenly. It's about correction. He outlined his vision. Ethical leadership, accountability, transparency, not inspirational slogans. Actual policy, actual consequences. Some board members nodded, others shifted uncomfortably. Daniel noticed everything. By lunchtime, the building was buzzing. Word had spread faster than wildfire. Did you hear what happened upstairs? That quiet black guy. He fired Huxley. Some employees celebrated silently. Others panicked. A few, especially those who had benefited from Richard's behavior, felt exposed. Daniel didn't walk the halls. He observed from above, because real change doesn't start with noise. It starts with structure. Richard didn't go home. He went to his lawyer, then to his contacts, then to his family name. But for the first time in his life, none of it worked. Emails stopped getting replies. Phones went unanswered. Invitations disappeared. He wasn't powerful anymore, and that terrified him. Late that evening, Daniel sat alone in his office, lights off, city glowing outside. For the first time that day, he exhaled deeply. Because victory doesn't erase memory. He remembered every insult, every dismissal, every closed door, and he allowed himself one quiet moment of acknowledgement. I survived. Then he stood up and got back to work. Change never arrives quietly. Within days, resistance formed. Anonymous complaints, passive aggression, subtle sabotage. Some executives smiled to Daniel's face, then undermined him behind closed doors. Daniel let them, because traps only work when you don't see them. And Daniel had built his entire life on seeing what others missed. At the next board meeting, Daniel came prepared, not with anger, with evidence, patterns, behavioral records, financial inconsistencies. One by one, those aligned with Richard's culture found themselves questioned. No shouting, no insults, just facts. And facts are merciless. Weeks passed. Something changed. Meetings became quieter, not tense but thoughtful. People listened more, spoke less. Employees who had once felt invisible began to contribute. Daniel didn't demand loyalty. He created safety, and safety breeds honesty. Part 21, the media catches on. A journalist caught the story, then another. Headlines appeared. Legacy executive removed in corporate shake-up. New chairman signals cultural reset. Daniel declined interviews. Silence had served him well before. He let the results speak. Part 22. Richard tries again. Months later, Richard attempted a comeback. A podcast, a narrative, a victim story. He framed himself as misunderstood. But the receipts were permanent, and the world had moved on. That was the hardest part for him, being irrelevant. One evening, Daniel was approached by a young black employee. Nervous, talented, doubted. "I saw what you did," the employee said quietly, "and I just wanted to say it matters." Daniel nodded. That was enough. Years later, Daniel attended an industry conference. High level, exclusive. As fate would have it, Richard was there. Older, smaller, less certain. Their eyes met. Richard looked away first. Daniel didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply walked past. Because the greatest defeat isn't humiliation. It's being forgotten. Daniel's leadership changed the company, but more importantly, it changed perception. People stopped underestimating silence, stopped confusing loudness with strength, and somewhere out there another quiet person watched and learned. This wasn't just a story about a black man defeating a white man. It was about discipline defeating arrogance, preparation defeating privilege, character defeating cruelty. No fists, no violence, just absolute dominance through wisdom. And that lasts longer than any punch ever could. Time passed, and with it came a kind of pressure Daniel had not fully anticipated. Power, he discovered, did not make life quieter. It made it sharper. Every decision he made was examined. Every word he spoke was replayed. Some praised him openly, calling him a symbol of change. Others resented him silently, convinced he was an interruption in a system that had worked just fine for them. Daniel understood both reactions. He didn't try to control either. Instead, he focused on something deeper, rebuilding trust. He spent hours listening, not talking. Listening. To junior staff who had never been invited into executive conversations, to older employees who had survived multiple leadership regimes and learned to expect disappointment, to people who had learned to keep their heads down because speaking up always came with consequences. Daniel didn't promise miracles. He promised consistency. And consistency over time began to heal things fear had broken. Not everyone welcomed the change. A small but influential group of executives began quietly positioning themselves against him. They didn't challenge him openly. That would have been foolish. Instead, they delayed projects, questioned decisions endlessly, and framed resistance as caution. Daniel noticed. He always noticed. Rather than confront them immediately, he shifted strategy. He decentralized power, placing responsibility in teams rather than individuals. Decisions no longer bottlenecked through egos. Performance became visible. Excuses didn't survive long in the open. The resistance weakened on its own. One afternoon, Daniel received an email from a university he had once applied to and been rejected from. They were inviting him to speak at a leadership conference. He stared at the message for a long moment before accepting. Standing at the podium weeks later, he didn't talk about success. He talked about patience, about being underestimated, about learning when to speak and when to let outcomes speak for you. A student asked him afterward, "Didn't it hurt, being treated the way you were?" Daniel paused. "It taught me something," he said. "Pain doesn't always come to destroy you. Sometimes it comes to sharpen you." The clip went viral. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. Meanwhile, Richard's story continued to unravel quietly. Attempts to rebuild his reputation failed. People remembered. Organizations didn't want controversy attached to their name. Over time, he stopped trying to be heard and focused instead on being unseen. Ironically, invisibility, the thing he once weaponized against others, became his reality. Back at the company, Daniel faced his hardest challenge yet. A major deal was at risk. Billions on the line. Investors grew anxious. Advisors pushed him to compromise his values for speed. The old system would have done exactly that, sacrifice people to protect profit. Daniel refused. The board questioned him. Share prices dipped. Articles speculated. Daniel held firm. Weeks later, the truth emerged. The deal had been flawed from the beginning. His refusal had prevented massive losses. Confidence returned, stronger than before. That moment changed everything. People no longer followed Daniel because he symbolized justice. They followed him because he was right. Late one night, as he prepared to leave the office, Daniel noticed the building was unusually quiet. He walked through the lobby slowly, remembering the day he first entered. Unnoticed, mocked, dismissed. Now, security greeted him by name, not out of fear, out of respect. He stepped outside into the city air, feeling something unfamiliar. Peace, not the loud kind, the earned kind. Daniel knew the world hadn't changed completely. Prejudice still existed. Arrogance still thrived in many places. But one thing was undeniable. Power no longer intimidated him. He had learned its language, and he had rewritten its rules. Years later, long after Daniel stepped away from leadership, people still spoke about that era. Not as a revolution, but as a correction. A moment when silence spoke louder than noise, and wisdom outlasted cruelty. Some stories end with applause. This one ended with something better. A shift. And shifts, once started, don't stop. Daniel soon realized that defeating arrogance in public was easier than dismantling it in private. On paper, the company was changing. Policies were rewritten. Departments were restructured. New faces appeared in leadership meetings. But beneath the surface, old habits clung stubbornly to life. Some executives complied outwardly while resisting inwardly. They nodded in meetings, praised Daniel's vision, then quietly delayed execution. Deadlines slipped. Miscommunications increased. Mistakes that never used to happen suddenly became frequent. Not accidental, calculated. Daniel noticed the pattern late one evening while reviewing performance reports. Individually, each issue looked harmless. Together they told a story of people testing him, waiting to see how far they could go. He didn't react immediately. That restraint confused them. They expected anger. They expected force. They expected him to prove himself loudly. Instead, Daniel adjusted quietly. He introduced transparency tools that made delays visible. He tied outcomes to accountability, not relationships. When excuses appeared, data answered them. When blame shifted, timelines spoke. Slowly, resistance became risky. Outside the company, the world responded in its own complicated way. Daniel began receiving invitations he had never imagined before. Closed-door meetings, industry councils, advisory boards. Often he was the only black man in the room. Sometimes conversations stopped when he entered. Other times he was praised excessively, in a way that felt uncomfortable, like admiration mixed with surprise. "You're very articulate," one man said during a dinner. Daniel smiled politely. He had heard that sentence his entire life. What unsettled him most wasn't hostility. It was expectation. People now looked to him as proof. Proof that the system worked. Proof that opportunity was equal. Proof that bias was exaggerated. That weight was heavier than disrespect. One night, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, lights off, city humming outside. For the first time since taking control, doubt crept in. Not doubt about his ability, but doubt about the cost. He wondered how many others like him never made it this far. How many were broken quietly? How many were told to be patient until patience became surrender? The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He launched an internal leadership program. Not advertised, not performative. It focused on identifying overlooked talent and giving them real authority, not symbolic titles. Progress was slow. Some failed, others thrived. One young woman from operations stood out. Brilliant, direct, unafraid. She challenged Daniel openly in meetings. Instead of shutting her down, he listened. Others noticed. Something shifted. People stopped whispering and started preparing. Meetings became sharper. Ideas improved. Fear retreated. Then came the crisis. A whistleblower report landed on Daniel's desk late one Friday evening. It detailed misconduct in a regional division, harassment, intimidation, falsified records. The names involved were influential, profitable. Advisors urged caution. Handle it quietly. Protect the brand. Don't create unnecessary noise. Daniel read the report again. Then a third time. He remembered the boardroom, the laughter, the silence. He acted. By Monday, an investigation was public. By Friday, multiple executives were removed. Lawsuits followed. Headlines flared. Stock prices dipped. Critics emerged. Too aggressive. Too idealistic. Bad for business. Daniel absorbed it all. Months later, the numbers recovered, stronger than before. Employee retention rose. Productivity increased. Lawsuits disappeared. Silence followed again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was respect. Years passed. Daniel eventually stepped back from daily leadership. He didn't vanish. He mentored, advised, listened. When asked why he never wrote a book or told his story publicly, he gave a simple answer. Some lessons are louder when lived than when explained. One evening, as he walked past the building where it all began, Daniel paused. He watched people enter, nervous, hopeful, uncertain. He saw himself in some of them. He smiled faintly and continued walking, because his victory had never been about standing above others. It was about making sure fewer people had to fight the same battles in silence. And in that quiet, lasting impact, the story truly continued.